Bless you.
So last week we had a new Dharma family, the Young family, Young Bull, Young Buck, Young Gay. And each of them was given a Buddhist rosary, or otherwise known as a mala. So probably 10 years ago, I had a veterinary client of mine. They were elderly, and now I have to be careful because at the time they were probably my age that I am now. I don't consider myself elderly, but I considered them elderly at the time. They're probably maybe 15 years older than me, and didn't have any children. Devout Catholics. They went to mass every day of the week, and they had a business, and using semi-precious and precious stones and crystals, they made Christian jewelry. And the primary thing that they made was crucifixes, the rosary. And so they knew I was a Buddhist monk, and we used to talk a little bit of religion. I had told them that I'd been in Catholic seminary for a couple of years, so that piqued their interest, that intrigued them. And they were accepting of me, and I loved talking with them. And one day they surprised me with this hematite crystal rosary, and I actually have used it a number of times for meditation purposes, and I keep it out in the house. Some of you have been in there, maybe have seen it hanging there. And you know, there is a rosary. This is a Roman Catholic rosary, initially begun by the Dominicans. It's a rosary, but it's also the rosary capitalized. The rosary is a set of prayers, prescribed prayers that are offered up as a form of meditation and contemplation on the life of Mary and Jesus Christ. And so I hold this in dear respect, and really enjoy it dearly. Well, my first mala that I got, and I actually remember the date of it. It was a Wednesday, May 14th, 1997. Sunim Samu, or Samu Sunim, who's head of the Buddhist Society for Compassion and Wisdom, I happened to get married at their Toronto temple, Zen Buddhist Temple, Toronto, out on Cornelia, North Chicago, near Addison, if you know where that is at all. And I had been to his temple a number of times because I was attending Presbyterian Seminary in Hyde Park, University of Chicago campus, which is in southern Chicago. And on nights or afternoons when I got off early, and if they were doing a meditation out up at the temple, I'd drive north and get to the temple and sit with them for their meditation and get home like 3 in the morning here. And a couple of times I spent the night, it was just too late. So Samu Sunim knew who I was, and after he married us, he said, my name was just Gary then, I didn't have a Dharma name. He said, come on, Gary, let's go out to your car. So we went out to the car, and he has this mala, which at the time was pearl white and glowed in the dark. And the Buddha bead, or the Bodhisattva bead, the biggest bead down here, had the Bodhisattva Kuan Yin in the middle of it. And I really loved it. And he hung it around my beer. And it hung there. And he said, now listen, this is to practice mindfulness. He said, if you're driving and all of a sudden you see that thing is flipped around like that, you're not being mindful at all. So, you know, figure out what's going on in your mind and fix it. So I had this for a number of years, and then when I got my first truck, the mirror was too long, it wouldn't fit over there. So this has been hanging in the house. It no longer glows in the dark. It lost that ability years and years ago. And from moisture and condensation, you can't see Kuan Yin in there any longer. But I used to use this driving all the time for those of you who do have malas. And there's two ways you can use your mala, and this is how I still use my other malas, my 108 bead malas. This is a 36 bead mala. I will chant one of the Buddhas or Bodhisattvas, usually either Quantum, Bodhisattva, or Amitabha Amida, Buddha. And those are the two most common in Korea. And I'll chant their names and just roll the beads like that. And then when I get to the Buddha bead or the Bodhisattva bead, I'll say the golden chain of love, which is in your chant books there. And I'll do this once or twice or 3 times or whatever. And I found that in driving, it's really just kind of fun to say that and focus on the road. And it was good practice for developing concentration, stillness. The other way that I use this, and still do on my other longer malas, is I would chant 3 refuges, usually in Sanskrit because it was faster. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, rather than like on Tuesday night when we do it in Pali, and it's pretty slow. So I'd get around the bead, and then when I'd get to the Buddha bead, I would chant, because I could never remember the Pali, I would chant the 5 precepts in English. And I still use these for those purposes. So I would recommend that your beads don't just, be around your neck as kind of like a symbol that I'm a Buddhist, or a source of, gee, look at that nice piece of jewelry, those wooden beads there and whatnot. But to use the damn thing, it's a functional piece of jewelry to be used. And for those of you who don't know about malas, and sometimes we forget to mention this, traditionally, now most people don't realize this, most people think that like any pendant that's hanging from a chain from your neck, that the big part, the decorative part and whatnot, hangs down here. Traditionally, the Buddha bead always hangs in the back of your neck. That goes on the top. Represents compassion. It's between your heart and your head. Compassion and wisdom. So that's the proper way to wear a mala. Not that most people are going to give a damn, to be honest with you, but if you want to do it properly, that's the way to wear a mala. You wear the big bead at the back of your neck there, representative of compassion and wisdom. So, I gave you the name Yom, which is somewhere between Y-U-M and Y-A-W-M, Yom. And most properly, it's like Reverend Bupsong's name. Hers is S-E-O-N-G, and it's pronounced like song, like S-O-N-G. And most properly, your names are probably more, rather than Yum, it's like, like Yum Yum. It's Yom, Yombo, Yamba, Yumge. So, recollection, because you use these beads in Korean are called Yom Ju, recollection beads, or a lot of people just call it a Buddhist rosary. Although there's no set form of prayers that you have to use, you can make up your own set form of chanting and prayers and whatnot to count repetitions. But these are called Yomju, Y-E-O-M-J-O-O, Yomju. So use them. Use your Yomju for your personal practice. Last week I had, Tuesdays, I had told you that we're going to have you do the 3 refuges in Pali at your ordination. And since Sunim handled the whole thing, he kind of took that out of my hands. I didn't know what he was planning. He hadn't told me in advance. And for those of you who might have been paying attention, he chanted the 3 refuges in Pali. We do it one time, and then we do it a second time. Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure if you're going to be a monk that you really want to walk into homelessness, that you want to live without your family, without your home? You have no idea where your next meal is coming from. You have no idea where you're going to sleep that night. Are you sure about that? Oh yeah, a second time I'm sure. Are you really sure about it? Let's do this a third time and make sure, because once you commit, that's it. You're a monk. And finally, because so many people were joining the Sangha, so many people heard the message and it resonated with the people, they added the precepts too. You know, we need a way to live together. And so the 5 precepts came into being. I mean, it's not like they came into being, the Buddha thought they had been bouncing around, you know, whatnot, but they hadn't been put into a set form, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then as the monks lived in community, male and female monks, obviously the rules and regulations that they had to develop. So eventually, we had 250 rules or regulations for male monks and 348 for female. Only because females, there's a lot of personal hygiene things that played into them that don't play into men. So that's why female monks have so many more regulations that they're asked to live by. And many of those are completely outdated nowadays. They're only repeated because of the fact that it's tradition. They're just not practical to live like that, even in community. So I don't know how many of you have ever seen the movie My Cousin Vinny. I've seen it a whole bunch of times. And when Mona Lisa Vito is on the stand and she is having a hissy fit because Vinny Gambini is pressing her, and she's just had it with him. And she's ready to leave him. And so he starts asking these questions, and he says, you know, Miss Vito, are you sure? She's like, yes, I'm sure. Miss Vito, are you really sure? Whenever I hear that, I always think about the 3 precepts, the 3 refuges, and how they're, you know, we asked, are you really sure this is what you want to commit to? Because it's a big commitment. Interestingly enough, and we've got our handout sheets over there, we don't need them right now, but in Pali, the 3 refuges, it's called T-I, Sarana, S-A-R-A-N-A, T-Sarana. T is 3, Sarana is refuges. However, Sarana actually comes from a verb, Sarati, S-A-R-A-T-I. Sarati means to crush. So these are the 3 crushers. You go to Buddha, you go to Dharma, and you go to Sangha to crush your ignorance, to crush your defilements, to crush your anger. The 3 crushers. That's what Sarana actually means. We interpret it as refuges, but it literally means to crush. To crush all of those things that would lead you into doing evil. Chapter 14 of the Dhammapada, the Buddha, to practice as a Buddhist is real simple. Avoid evil, do good, cultivate your mind. There you have it right there. And the 3 crushers, the 3 refuges, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, will greatly, if you remember them, help you to crush anger, defilements, ignorance. Another movie that I watched actually just last week that I was thinking about just before you guys took the precepts, Beetlejuice. You know, here's Beetlejuice in this fake little mock town of the real town out there, you know. He tries to get anyone, you know, who can to say his name, what, 3 times, right? 3 times. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Play charades with, I forget her name.
Lydia?
Yeah, right, play charades with Lydia. And she won't say it the 3rd time. What happens when it's said a 3rd time? He becomes human. He's not just a poltergeist, he becomes human. And that's what he wants. He wants to be human. So he can screw around with folks. And, which he does for a period of time. And when you take refuge in the Buddha and the precepts, you become fully human. You say it that 3rd time and you commit, you become fully, you're now offered the opportunity to become fully human, an actualized human being who's on a path of awakening, of understanding, of compassion. It is a path of commitment. Now, a lot of people are afraid of commitment. We know that very, very well. You know, a lot of people nowadays, when I was 21, I got married. Nowadays, I think about my son in 4 years, he'll be 21. And if you were to get married, I say, oh my God, you know, you're just way too young. But I got married at 21. I thought I was ready. Nowadays, a lot of people live together. I used to think, man, that is freaking crazy, you know? There's a movie I was watching the other day, I forget what movie it is, but it's something to the effect. It said that, why should you buy the cow and get the milk for free? I don't remember what movie that was. However, in counseling a lot of people, in performing a lot of marriages over the years, I truly believe now that people probably should live together before they get married. I say that and it doesn't always work out. I have a number of clients at my office who've been together anywhere from 25 to 30 years unmarried. And they had bad marriages, their first marriages, and they vowed, both man and woman, never to marry again. And as long as they haven't had to sign on the dotted line, they're fine. Part of the reason I say this, the second mala that I got was a wooden mala, just like the one that I gave you guys. And it's when I took the precepts in '97 in Chicago at the Zen Buddhist Temple, Chicago. And that mala went on to a dying member of our temple, Sharonima Georgia Lewis, in Beaumont Hospital. And she held on to it while we were chanting her into her next becoming. And her family asked me if I would please observe her cremation. They wanted to make sure that she was cremated properly. So my wife and I, who was, I don't know if she was ordained yet then or just still a Dharma student. I think she was ordained. And anyhow, we went out to the crematorium and I said, just out of curiosity to the fellow, I said, you know, could you just open up the body bag? I want to see if they still have my mala. I had told them in the hospital, make sure the mala's on her. And they zipped down the body bag and there was the mala they had it around her neck. I was like, great. And pulled it back up and then put her in the burner. And that was my second mala. I've given away a lot of malas over the years. Mostly to people who I don't think they took it any further. To them, it was kind of like a good luck charm. You know, it's kind of neat to have a mala, kind of like wearing a crucifix, you know. And I'll have a Buddhist mala on. It's kind of cool. Anyhow, just to talk about commitment real quick, and then I'll end this Dharma talk. When I was a active Presbyterian, thinking about Presbyterian seminary, I went to a Presbyterian church in Troy, First Church of Troy, which is just a stone's throw away from the big Unitarian barn church on Livernois near 17 Mile Road. And I became active, I became an elder, and I became head of the stewardship committee, which is our job to collect money from people, which was not an easy job. It was probably the toughest job in the temple to get people to encourage them to donate on a regular basis so we could form a budget. And one of the couples that I had to go visit were a really elderly couple. The Waddles, brother and sister. Morris Waddles was the brother. He had been a science teacher and retired. And his sister, Mary Helen, was single, and she'd been a teacher, retired. They lived together right at the corner of 17 Mile Road and Livernois. And so they took me through their grand old, that was their farmhouse that they grew up in. I forget how many hundreds of acres out there, that was their farmland. And Waddles Road is named for their family, and Waddles School is named for their family. And so it was really interesting as I'm talking to them about developing a budget and, you know, could they sign a pledge so that we knew what they would commit? Mary Ellen said, sure, not a problem, Gary. I'd be more than happy to. And Morris says, no, I'm not going to. And I'm like, that's weird. Okay, well, you know, each to their own. And I said, well, just out of curiosity, Morris, why? You know, why won't you sign a pledge? He said, because I'm not Presbyterian. I said, you're at church every Sunday. What do you mean you're not Presbyterian? He said, I'm Methodist. He said, our mother was Methodist. He said, there's no way I would change religions like my sister did. He said, I'm a Methodist till the day I die. He said, I don't like the Methodist church here, which is why I come to the Presbyterian church. But he said, I'm a Methodist in my heart. I like their theology. I like their doctrines. I'm a Methodist. But he said, I come with my sister. Mary Helen eventually died, and Morris was alone, and he kept coming to our church till the day he died. And he donated plenty of money. He just didn't want to put a pledge, because somehow he felt that he was going against his Methodism and his mother's wish that he remain Methodist. There's real commitment. You know, there are a lot of people, and you have no idea how much I respect the courage that the three of you have. Because it's not easy to commit to any path nowadays, to make a vow, this is what I'm going to do. And there are a lot of people out there who claim to be Buddhist. They read a lot of Buddhist books and whatnot. If you ask them what are you, oh yeah, I think I'm Buddhist. You know, that resonates. Just like there's a lot of Christians who never go to church, never joined a church, but they're Christian. And to be a Buddhist, you have to do what you three guys did. Traditionally, to be a Buddhist, to be recognized formally as a Buddhist, you have to take refuge and you have to do the 5 precepts. You have to commit to those. That's it. That's what you got to do. And to do it, you have to say traditionally, you have to say in Pali, the 3 times, times 3, and then you have to say the 5 precepts, ideally in Pali, because that was the original language of Buddhism. Now, in the West, you know, there's a whole lot of corners that are cut, and a lot of people in the West are like, man, I don't dig tradition, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that. I'm going to do my own thing. You know, we're a bunch of independent cusses, and so there's a lot of people who claim to be Buddhist, but in truth, they're not. So that's why I say I really give you guys a lot of courage to commit to this path, and I'm really glad to have you here. And I think I'm going to end my talk at that. Thank you.